Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. Thank you for tapping in. Today, we're going to talk about the NFL and a little bit of a coaching problem that seems to continue to go on in the history of this league. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We do appreciate your feedback. Thanks for tapping in. Let's get to it. All right, so based on, as you guys know, I'm on Twitter fairly often, and sometimes I can gather topics from conversations that I have in different comments and replies on tweets that pop up along my timeline. Something that caught my attention was a conversation that my co-host Q and I had about Eric Bieniemy, assistant coach to Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs, who looks to be taking an opportunity with the Washington Commanders in the exact same position, but also being elevated to assistant head coach, a distinction that was not granted to him in Kansas City despite his tenure. Now, that being said, it brought to question, why is it becoming such a hard task for Eric Bieniemy to get a head coaching job in the NFL, despite the fact that he has interviewed for multiple positions and he's also put himself in a position to be considered one of the best offensive minds in football? So you start to look at the different underlying factors, and there's things that have been said, such as he doesn't interview very well, he's an abrasive person, and there's different things that just put organizations off. It rubs them the wrong way in the interview. And that's completely unfair, I guess you could say, because there's a lot of former players who are now or have been NFL coaches that are not considered the best guys overall. They don't have the best attitude, the best demeanor, the best bedside manner, so to speak, but yet they've been granted these positions. But something that's been similar in all of them is they're not black. That's the problem with the NFL right now. There's not enough African-American head coaches or African-American coaches who are getting opportunities to become head coaches. Think about this. In the history of the NFL, there have been 500 head coaches. There's only been 25 African-American coaches with an average tenure of 3 to 5 years. So that means not only are African-Americans not being hired to become head coaches, they're also given very short opportunities to make something happen within their time with the team. When you think about guys like Tony Dungy, Leslie Frazier, Mike Singletary, and guys of that age, that mindset, these are former players who became head coaches at some point with varying levels of success. Leslie Frazier and Michael Singletary didn't have the exact same success as a Tony Dungy. However, they were granted limited opportunities, and there's only so much you can do when you've got to turn over a roster. You've got to put together a proper team. There's just only so much that can be done, and eventually the organization moves on. My issue with this entire setup is that the NFL in general has, in some ways, tried to pretend that there's rules intended to increase the amount of African-American coaches, the Rooney Rule. But they've also found ways to completely circumvent that rule by saying, hey, we interviewed this person, we interviewed that person. However, we chose a different candidate. And unfortunately, those candidates continue to be non-African American. You have coaches going in for interviews such as Brian Flores, thinking they have a great opportunity to get a job, and then they aren't given that position. It just doesn't make sense to me. And how do you legitimize something like this? How do you tell the public a bold-faced lie that you want to see more diversity in coaching when the place it starts is there's no diversity in ownership? So that in itself tells you they're not really being that serious, because when an opportunity came for a team to be owned by a minority owner, they were passed over. Some of you may know that when the Carolina Panthers became available, Sean Combs, aka P. Diddy, was working with an investment group to go ahead and own the team, and he was not given the opportunity to do so. He was passed over. So you've got to take a long, hard look at the NFL. And as much as I love the sport, it disheartens me that I'm not seeing representation that looks like me that often even though I know that there's plenty of qualified people. Going into this season, there's only basically 3 African American coaches. You're looking at Mike Tomlin, Todd Bowles, and D'Amico Ryans. That's it. What are we doing here? What is the NFL going to do to address this issue in a more than I guess just a glazing over way? It just doesn't seem to make sense. The approach has been taken. It's not doing anybody any good, and I'm just concerned that it's not going to get any better anytime soon. And it's unfortunate that Eric Bieniemy had to take a position that's basically a lateral move with the title slapped on him that's not going to assure him of anything, and it may even put him on a shorter opportunity string, because now that he's an assistant head coach, there's a lot of heads that will roll if things don't go well. This just doesn't sit right in my spirit. Here's another fact I want to throw before I close this video. So of the 25 African-American head coaches that have served in the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have had 4 of them. They've only had 12 coaches in team history, and 4 of them have been African-American. What does that mean to me? There's been a couple of other teams that have had at least 2. So that says that the NFL has teams that have been around for 60 years or more that have never had an African-American coach. If that doesn't piss you off, you might want to reevaluate some things. But hey, this has been the Mic Check Podcast. This is T-Word, the People's Champ. Thank you for joining. Until the next time, I'm exiting the booth. Peace.